Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to Birds 365, your daily deep dive into the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Zander, Krause, joined by my co-host, Eagles Insider, the number one beat reporter in town, John McMullen, as we bring you the latest news, insights, and everything you need to know to stay connected to the Birds. Johnny Mac, Tuesday after a big win, Birds moved to 4-2.
A good record. It's a good record.
And getting closer to the top of that NFC East. Commanders moved to 5-2 with a trouncing victory over the Panthers. Not much to take away from that for them, but right there in contention, Johnny Mac, as we move through the week here and prepare for the upcoming Bengals game. Where's your mind sitting on this Tuesday morning after you get out of Overreaction Monday? You stop listening to me tell you it's ball.
Well, I got a concussion. I'm in the concussion protocol for banging my head against the wall.
Yeah.
By the way, somebody will be upset by that.
No, that's all right. Don't worry.
I'm joking, but today's coordinator day, so we got one more day to mix it around. But then it's on to Cincinnati. That's where I am. I'm already on to Cincinnati, to use Bill Belichick's. They did. Hey, all credit goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Put up the pen, knock them down. But I'm not going to overreact to the actual style points of beating just a pathetic football team that, the snowball started going down the hill. And as we say, all games have personalities. Like for example, I saw a bunch of people in my I put up the snap counts every week. The next morning, and Jordan Davis didn't play a lot because he plays in 5-man fronts mainly, and I think he played in 12 reps. They couldn't run the ball. They ran the ball 4 times for 3 yards in the first half. Then they're behind. The Eagles were in 4-man fronts the entire game. Then they stopped playing their starters the entire fourth quarter. I mean, a lot of this stuff is self-explanatory. But you pick up the box score and people lose their mind. He's the 13th pick of the draft. He's playing 12 snaps. Again, throw it out. Throw it out. You're muted, Zander.
How do you quantify that though, John? Because I get what you're saying. It's self-explanatory, but the reality is he is the 13th pick, and if he's not going to be on the field that much, are they going to value him enough?
Well, that's a legitimate conversation. That's a legitimate conversation. Is a part-time player at number 13, is that enough value? That I'll listen to. The fact that he didn't play in that game, it's obvious why he didn't play in that game. It had nothing to do if they could run the ball a modicum, he'd be out there. If they weren't always dropping back to pass, he'd be out there. If they weren't sitting their starters in the fourth quarter, he'd be out there. That's what I'm saying. That point of it is ludicrous to even lose one wink of sleep over.
I do think the Jordan Davis conversation is interesting because, you told me all the time. You told me yesterday you were beating your head on the wall because I'm trying to go back to the 1960s era of football and run the
75.
Football.
I gave you 75.
Whatever it is. Jordan Davis, if he's only good against the run, how much how we value that? I don't know. I don't know if he gets extended. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah. Look, I think it's legitimate to question whether you need more from a player who was picked that highly in the draft. I have no problem with that. I mean, I said that from day one. I said, I don't think people are going to get this pick from day one. Jody can tell you that.
Yeah. I remember. I was producing the show. I remember.
It was, it's because he's not a numbers guy. He's never going to be a numbers guy. And it's going to be tough to explain to people his value to the team. But his value to the team is pretty significant. Again, when they need it. And against the New York Giants, they didn't need it. So he wasn't out there. And it's it's legitimate to say, should you take a role player that high in the draft? That I agree with. That part is legitimate criticism. So
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing there. John, I will say this about the Eagles' win on Sunday. It was a complete game, and I think their most dominating performance. I know that the opponent was lesser, but there was a lot of talk about they haven't beat a team by double digits and however many long, which I always thought was kind of a stupid argument. It's the NFL. There's going to be tight games, but I thought it was their most complete performance on both sides of the ball. Another step toward the direction that this team wants to go. You know, I kept saying yesterday on the afternoon show, I don't view this like linear. Keep getting better each week.
Jordan Davis, he said
To
linear.
to your
Football's not
repertoire.
linear. He said that last week.
Yeah, well,
Football
keep adding
is
something
not
to your
linear.
repertoire, and by after Thanksgiving, you hope that you're in your best form, or at least getting closer to your best version of it, playing your best football. And I thought Sunday was a significant step toward that direction.
I'm not going to go that far, but again, you know, they got a batting practice basketball and they hit it out of the park. I don't know if the ace shows up, if it means anything, if you get my drift.
Yeah, I do. I get it.
They got a batting practice basketball and they hit it 500 feet. That's all, by the way. But I don't think it translates much. You're going to have to play differently. You're going to have to execute differently to beat a more competent opponent on a particular day. And the Giants aren't always that bad. People are like, well, they beat the Seahawks. But well, Andrew, you know, if Andrew Thomas is healthy and playing, it's probably a little bit more difficult right off the bat. You know, on that particular day, they were not a competent opponent, and the Eagles took advantage of it. I don't know why that so many people consider that an insult. You get a batting practice fastball, hit it out of the park. A lot of guys foul it off. You know, they don't take advantage of it. And the Eagles did it the week prior against a lesser foe and struggled and managed to get the win. So all of that is positive. But yeah, I'm not. And I asked Nick specifically about the identity thing, and he went exactly where I knew he would go, but I wanted other people to hear it. It's not identity game. It's a statement game. Not an identity game, a statement game. You said, all right, this team's bullshit. We're going to blow them off the field.
Right.
That's a statement. It's not, we're going to do this every week. That's not possible.
Nor does it seem to be their plan to do that, John. We're going to talk about some individual players today that we didn't talk about. We didn't have as much time yesterday as you'd like when you have two guests. It's hard because I had so much stuff I wanted to talk to you about yesterday. So we'll get into that today. And then coming up in hour number 2, everybody, we'll have the great Les Bowen. Can't wait to talk to Les. He always gives it to us straight and gives us his honest opinions on the football team. So we'll see what Les has to say. Looking forward to talking to Les in hour number 2. Appreciate everybody in the chat this morning. Jimmy and Martine. Appreciate you guys. Yale, Slagger, Jeff Martin. Good to see everybody. Mr. Perez. Appreciate all of you guys. Anybody I missed, I didn't mean to miss you, but I appreciate you being here. John, the first 2 players I want to talk about today, and it would be easy to go to the pass rush and talk about the 8 sacks and Nakobe Dean. I want to talk about the 2 rookies, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who both seem, at least the early returns, seem as though they are, I don't want to call them home run picks, but they're close to it. Quinyon Mitchell, you could argue, is a home run pick, and Cooper DeJean is looking the part, at least when he's on the football field. What did you see from them yesterday in the win over the Giants, or 2 days ago? Sorry.
Yeah, Cooper specifically was great. When I rewatched the game, he was just off the charts good. And I didn't see that coming, to be honest. I thought there'd be a lot of hiccups, and he was really good in the Cleveland game as well. So, and Quinyon's just been solid from day one. I mean, I don't think he had his best game from a standpoint of you couldn't tell, but he didn't have a great tackling game. I know he was the only Eagle that had like a bad tackling grade. Um, so it wasn't his best performance, but like his worst performance is better than most rookies at the cornerback position. So I have no worries about Quinyon Mitchell long term. But I'm really surprised at Cooper DeJean and how quickly he's taken to the slot. And again, there's going to be tougher tests ahead starting this week with Joe Burrow. And it might not look as smooth, but boy, he was really good. He was PFF had him as the best player on the Eagles defense, and everybody got good grades basically. And he was the best.
Wow.
Well, Sidney was the best. Sidney Brown was the best, but he only played 9 snaps. Of the
Yeah, I
guys
was
who
going to say he
played,
wasn't out there too much.
no, of the guys who played significant snaps, Cooper was number 1, and by a pretty significant margin. And he did. You could see it on. He was really good. He was really good, and that is a big positive because let's be honest, Avonte Maddox has not been playing well. Had not been playing well, so all of a sudden you're getting really good work in the slot. Now, again, there's been no test yet. It's been struggling Deshaun Watson, who is now out, obviously, and Daniel Jones with a struggling Giants offense. So, this will be the first big test from a quarterback standpoint, even though Cincinnati's got plenty of issues, but Joe Burrow's pretty good. So it'll get more difficult, but early on, it's been very impressive for Cooper.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'll give you a stat on Quinyon Mitchell in a second, which is pretty impressive. But I'll ask you this real quick, John. I know Britton Covey's good at returning punts and all, but when he gets healthy, are they
Yeah,
going
he's
to
got
take
punt
Cooper
return
out? Because
too.
Cooper looks like he's a different level. He provides a
Yeah,
different type of upside at that spot.
we were talking about it last week because, let's be honest, he gets pigeonholed because he's a white guy. People don't know how athletic he is.
Oh, he is tremendously athletic, and you can really see it on the punt
Yeah.
returns, John.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go that way because, he's a starting defensive player and they probably
Right.
don't want to put all that on his plate, but they're doing it now. And if they're doing it now, would they consider it? Yeah, I think they'll consider keeping him as the punt returner. And I think boy, I love Britton Covey as a person, and he's so honest. So as a reporter, you have so much respect for that. But sometimes I think he gets himself in trouble by being too honest. And I think, unfortunately, and if you're listening, Howie, unfortunately, sometimes he gets in trouble, and that's bullshit. But that's the reality of the NFL and the modern world.
Did he say something recently that got him in trouble? I miss it.
Well, not publicly, but he was a little bit too honest with his injury, and the Eagles don't like that. I'll just say that, which is bullshit. And by the way, it was already out there. I forget who reported it first, if it was Ian or it was already out there. And he's talking to us about his injury, and some people got upset about it. It's so stupid, but. Anyway, I digress. I shouldn't go
I
down.
like Covey, but I don't know if they're comfortable keeping their starting slot corner, which maybe they're not. At punt return, he seems
Well,
he's
I don't
pretty
think
electric
I don't
back
think
there, John.
their history says they don't want to do that.
Yeah, right. I would
Um,
agree.
so I don't think they're going to do that. And I hear what you're saying because he's a better athlete than most people on the planet.
Yeah.
So he's a better athlete than Britton, but Britton's a good athlete as well. And look, Britton was the best punt returner in football last season over a large sample size. This is a very small sample size. So I think they're going to go back to Britton, but you at least have to mull it over if you're comfortable doing it. But part of it is he's going to be the starting slot corner, and I don't think they want him risking injury on punt returns if they don't need him. Right now, they need him. Unless you want to stick Jahan Dotson back there, who doesn't have a lot of experience doing it. He takes reps at practice. That's why I bring him up. Anais Smith, you could activate him, but boy, man, would you trust him after that training camp and dropping everything? I don't know if they want to go down that route, but obviously they trust Britton, and then they can go back to because Cooper's going to have some issues at slot, and I think they want him to concentrate on that. So my guess would be they'd go back to Britton.
Yeah, and he's doing pretty good in there, and we'll see how he continues to develop. John, I want to talk to you about Quinyon Mitchell now. We just referenced him a little bit, but here's a stat for you, and make of it what you will, and maybe you can tell me it's BS, but it's pretty impressive. Eagles rookie cornerback Quinyon Mitchell leads all 28 defensive backs who have been targeted at least 33 times this season in passer rating allowed. So in other words, when they're targeting him, the passer rating's pretty low, and he looks really good. I mean, I know he hasn't been perfect, but for a rookie corner, he looks like he's going to be a bona fide cornerback one for a long time in this league. I'm pretty damn impressed with Quinyon Mitchell. Am I overreacting, Johnny Mac?
No, you should be impressed. I did see that. Joe Banner chimed into that. Joe trying to create trouble. Saying two teams wouldn't agree with that because somebody had tweeted, how meaningful it was. He's been really good, but it hasn't been all peaches and cream, but it shouldn't be. I have no questions about Quinyon Mitchell long term. But first of all, people are targeting him for a reason. They don't want to go after Slay. So I know people don't get that. They don't believe that. They don't, so people are still comfortable doing it. And, hopefully that changes as time goes on. But as a rookie player, I don't have any issues with Quinyon Mitchell. It's been a great pick. But I don't think, people are citing that. I don't think he's one of the best corners in the NFL yet. I think those people are jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think as a rookie, he's done a tremendous, tremendous job.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a fast track. Here's some stats from Quinyon Mitchell. 48.3 completion percentage allowed, 14 receptions on 29 targets, 197 yards allowed, 155 in the air, 42 yard after catch, 0 touchdowns allowed, 70.6 QB rating when targeted, 6 passes defended, 24 tackles, 2 missed tackles, and 97% of snaps played. So pretty good start to his career. Good to see. Eagles drafted a hopefully a bona fide cornerback one in the draft, and he so far is as advertised. Johnny Mac. John, I want to talk to you about Vic Fangio now. Vic Fangio has been bringing some pressure in the last couple of weeks. Do you think that will be a trend he sticks to, especially when you look at the personnel he has, namely guys like Nakobe Dean, who has deficiencies, but clearly is a good downhill player and has the ability to blitz. Do you think Vic Fangio will stick to that more aggressive style? Still his scheme, but a little bit more of an aggressive style of it. Do you think he'll stick to that? Because I think we've seen that in the last couple of weeks. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I'm sure you could pull them. Looks more aggressive to me. Is that just the product of playing Daniel Jones? Or will he stick to that?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking, but
yeah, I mean, Vic's not the guy who's gonna consistently do something like every week. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Don't be the same every week, because then people pick up on trends and things like that. But their blitz rate is right where it always is with Vic Fangio long term. They've actually gone down, believe it or not, over the last 2 weeks. They were 22%.
Really?
Yeah, they were 22%. I'm looking at now, they're at 20.5%. So Yeah, a lot of it I think is visual in the fact that, sometimes it's a Dom Caper zone blitz. So sometimes he's only remember what a blitz is. It's sending extra rushers.
Right.
So if you see, you saw Josh Sweat in coverage. If you see N'Kobe blitzing as somebody else dropping, it's not a blitz.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Like there was that viral picture of Brandon Graham covering Malik Nady.
Exactly. Brandon was out there and they both went horribly, by the way. Josh Sweat, first play of
Yeah.
the game.
First play of the game. I was going to say
Yeah,
that.
it
Yeah.
looked horrible. Brandon looked horrible, as they should. It's not, but yeah, so a lot of it looks visual. If the linebacker's coming, you say, "Oh, blitz," and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And even the I used to get in these semantical arguments with Jody all the time. It's like they'll call it his own blitz, Tom Caper's own blitz, but is it a blitz really, or is it again linebackers coming, you're dropping defensive end or whomever? Um, you're only rushing 4. Technically, that's not a blitz. It's like, why do you call big nickel with 6 defensive backs on the field? Should be a dime. All right, because that's what they call it. That's what they label it. It's pretty much the explanation. Why they call a play that isn't a blitz and call it a zone blitz, because that's what they call it. It's just a label. It's just a
I got to
title.
buy a big book of all these labelings for all this defense.
Yeah, it's just a title.
Do they have one? John, do you have one of those? Do they sell one of those things? We can give them a free
I'm sure
plug,
they
right?
do. I don't.
I got to get one of them, man.
And all coaches are different, so
Yeah.
they'll have different terminology for different things. And some won't call big nickel. Some won't call zone blitz, whatever. But yeah, and even personnel groupings, I say all the time. Well, you could call 12 personnel because 2 tight ends are on the field, and they're labeling them as tight ends, but they might be lined up as a fullback, or they might be lined up as a slot receiver. So the labeling says, "Oh, they're in 12," and people think big. They're they're going to run the ball. They might be trying to spread you out in a different way. So I think a lot of that stuff gets lost in the sauce, so to speak, as far as what teams are trying to accomplish. But yeah, believe it or not, he's actually gone down from it was 22 point, I think 7 to 20.5 over the past couple of weeks. And they are, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams blitz less than the Eagles. That's it.
Yeah, so they're still toward the bottom of the league. But I do like what Vic has done in the last couple of weeks. I will say this. You got an interesting test coming up because you go from Deshaun Watson to Daniel Jones. Now you go to Joe Burrow, who I don't think the Bengals are a great football team or a great organization for that matter. But that's a great quarterback. And it's going to be interesting to see how Vic Fangio goes up against it. And we talked about Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean earlier. Well, here you go. You got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They're going to have a good test this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles play this week versus the Bengals, which is now a 1 p.m. game. And they also flex that Eagles-Jaguars game out of Sunday Night Football on the 4 o'clock slot. So Johnny Mack is jumping with joy with the last couple.
Finally, the NFL helping me out. Well done, Park Avenue. Well done.
Yeah, it tells you what they think of this Birds team, though. Not a great storyline.
I think it's more to do with the opponents, but
really, did you see the game they flexed into Sunday Night Football? It's not particularly a worm burner.
Well, yeah, but one team's 5-1, and I think, although I'm not sold on them completely, most people think that's a playoff team, and Indianapolis is a game behind Houston in their division. So it's just got to do with, 2 playoff. It's too early to talk about playoffs,
Right.
but 2 playoff level teams, whereas Jacksonville has been a disaster. So I think it has more to do with Jacksonville.
I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. A reminder, the Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway is today, everybody. So get your memberships in here on JAKIB Sports. We'll be doing the giveaway. I'll be doing it right around 10 o'clock on the after hours of Birds 365 today. I got my list of members, and I'll be adding anyone that joins today before the giveaway. So get your memberships in today. Appreciate all of our members for supporting our channel. And we are I'm excited to give back a little bit to you guys today and give away a Saquon Barkley jersey after he exploded yesterday. A couple more topics on the defense here. Then when we get to our commercial break, we're going to get into what everybody always wants to talk about, John, and that's the quarterback. And we're going to talk a little quarterback. We're going to talk A.J. Brown, and we're going to talk about his comments Sunday after the game, see what Johnny Mack thinks of them, and we will do that after the commercial break. John, any other takeaways on the defense? I mean, when you look at this, I know you played the Giants, but boy, 8 sacks. Nakobe Dean's really starting to come alive a little bit. I think they're finding the role they like to use him in a little bit better. And then the other guy I'd point to that really looks like they're making progress, not just versus the Giants, is Nolan Smith. He's starting to look like he can be a viable NFL player on the edge, which is good to see from him. But any other takeaways for you on the defense? Any of those guys standing out to you?
Well, I think everybody played well pretty much against the Giants. Yeah. And I say that literally almost. Trying to pull up the grades, but I brought up the confidence aspect of it. And I think that's important for a young team because it's a very young defense. Other than Brandon, a couple guys, Darius Slay obviously being most notable, Josh Sweat to a certain degree. Very young. You talk about all the defensive linemen, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, still very young. Nolan Smith, Moro Ajomo's coming on. Even Bryce Hupp is a first time 3-down player, so to speak. But everybody played well against the Giants, and I think that gives people confidence. They haven't given up a touchdown in 9 quarters. That gives people confidence. It's all green. If you ever go to PFF, you rarely see all green, and that's not for the Eagles. That means you play pretty well. You get up to, if you're in the 90s, you get up to blue chip. Eagles didn't have anybody quite that high, but Nakobe Dean got that for his pass rush. He got a blue. That's how good he was on the pass rush. 4 pressures, 2 sacks, 2 hits. Did a tremendous job, and he had been playing poorly. So that's a big positive. CJ had a good game. He had not been playing great. Little bit of a concern with Zach Bond with the shoulder. We don't even bother asking Nick Sirianni about injuries, so we'll
It's a
get
waste
to
of
see.
a question.
It is,
Yeah.
and certainly on Zoom you can't say it, but that's you got to wait till Wednesday to see where he is, because then you got to throw probably Jeremiah Trotter Jr. into the deep end of the pool, which might not be the worst thing in the world either. See if Trot can do it in his 9 snaps. He got a good grade. Everybody got a good grade, basically, except for some of the people you would think would have gotten good grades, as is always the case. There were only 3 sort of subpar grades, and 2 of them with this. I'm not even going to bring it up. But anyway,
I want to hear the names. Come on, I got to hear the names. Are you kidding me?
Because people are going to lose their mind. What are they looking at? Jalen Carter was down the bottom. Josh Sweat was down the bottom, and Moro Ajomo, who had been playing very well.
I could see why people would be like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, well, because they
what,
got
what do you think goes into that? Is it not getting off blocks? Is it like
consistent. It's play to play. It's not, and
Right.
people see 2 sacks. It's play to play. It's
Right.
play to play. Every
Gotcha.
single play is graded. It's play to play. So splash plays, again, coach is grade differently than, people are going to be enamored by 2 sacks. They're just going to be enamored by it. But that doesn't mean you played a good game necessarily.
And what was that grading? PFF?
Yeah. And on the positive end, most of it was positive. So, it's a difficult time because, Eagles fans are going to want to criticize him for that. But then Cooper played well, Milton Williams, Nakobe Dean, CJ, Zach Bond, Brandon Graham, Reed Blankenship, Darius Slay, Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff. Everybody played well. So take it for what you will.
Yep, no doubt. Let's get to a couple super chats, John, before we get to our break. Appreciate everybody being here this morning. Hit that like button on Birds 365. Can we get up to 100 plus likes during the live show? I'd like to get to at least 200 plus on the after show, and a lot of people watch our show after it's live. So appreciate anybody watching on the replay right now. Hit that like button. Let's go to a couple super chats. And Martine says, Commanders look like a problem. Daniels goes down early, and they didn't skip a beat with Mariota.
I wouldn't worry about Mariota.
Panthers, but still impressive.
They have been impressive, but I would not worry about Marcus Mariota. If he's got to play, he played well. He did. He deserves credit. But, I mean, they need Jaden Daniels back.
What was the update on Jaden? Have we gotten one?
I have not seen a significant
I think I saw
one.
he was day-to-day.
Yeah, it's not a significant injury. That's all I know. But, I mean, they're a problem when he's on the field.
Not so much when
I think it's actually week to week, so he might miss a week or two, and obviously that will help generally. And I don't know Dan Quinn's terminology. In Eagles terminology, week to week means he's going to miss a game or two.
Right.
I assume Dan Quinn is using it the same. And if that's the case, Washington probably is going to struggle. They're playing, I believe, Chicago this week.
And we're 3 weeks away from playing them? We have the Bengals, then I think the Jags, and then I think it's the Cowboys. Then
I would guarantee he's back for that game.
Yeah, so we're 4 games out, probably like 3 or 3.5 weeks away from playing the Commanders.
Chicago's probably going to beat them if Marcus Mariota's out there.
Yeah, I would agree. For sure. Isn't that the game they flexed into Commanders Bears? Didn't they flex that into? Oh, they might have flexed that to the 4 o'clock window. I think that was the game that replaced us in the 4 o'clock window.
Yeah, no, that was Jaden Daniels against. Yes, it is.
It was right. Yeah, I was going to say. I thought because I remember saying the two rookies.
It was 1 versus 2. Yeah, that's why they did it, and they're not going to get it. That's what you get for flexing it, NFL. No, but thank you for doing it.
Yeah, Johnny Mac, careful what you say there. We're happy
for doing it, but they're not going to get what they wanted, which was Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
again, if Dan Quinn is using the same week to week, would indicate he's not going to play this week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Big next super chat. Big Fish Little Boat checks in. The coverage in the middle is helping the pass rush. Cooper and Nakobe, surprisingly. I watched the tape. Good stuff, Big Fish Little Boat. Johnny Mac, your response to that?
Well, Cooper's playing great. It always, rush and cover and rush. I mean, it's always paired together, always. Now, if you're asking me the first, I would go with Josh Azuadu first. I mean, he couldn't block anybody. I think that helped. But yeah, the cupboard certainly held up well, or certainly to a higher level since Cooper's been out there. No question about it.
Good stuff. Big Fish, thank you for the $5 super chat, man. Appreciate that. Next super chat from James Carver. He says, Zander, American Football Coaches Association books for definition and basic concepts are pretty good. Thank you, James. I'll check that out. And J-Mac's 100% right because some even call 2 tight ends and 1 running back 21. Yeah, I'm sure the way everything
coaches, some of them, and this has always been one of my. I've never understood why new coaches come in and change the terminology of the same things versus them malleable for being, because you have to think about it. You have to teach 70 guys versus 1. So it never made a lot of sense to me, but coaches have a lot of ego. Yeah. So they're going to say, do it my way and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, when you talk about, like, I remember the first time we're using 12 and 13 around Doug Peterson. He's like, oh, Tiger, you're talking about Tiger. Like, he doesn't call it 12. He calls it, so,
Everybody's got their own naming.
I mean, most people, if you say 12, most people know what you're talking about. But as you get deeper into it, yeah, there's a lot of different names for the same things. And that's when you go all the way back to Jalen Hurts saying 95%, 95%, 90. He was talking about the terminology. He was not
Which is a
talking
pain
about
in the ass. I mean, if you watch
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anybody in our chat watched the show Quarterback or any of those things. Every time you get a glimpse at what a quarterback, I mean, you listen to some of these coaches read off the play, and you're just like,
it's
what
absurd.
the hell was that? I mean,
Absurd.
it's like 2 sentences long of
And that's why you see the greats, Andy Reid, corn dog, bang, bang.
Yeah, you're right. Good stuff there. Next super chat, let's go to Brian. He says, Jalen Hurts just took another sack. Cooper DeJean is the apple of my eye. The tale of two halves of that super chat, Johnny Mac. Brian is not happy with the quarterback Jalen Hurts, but he likes Cooper DeJean, it appears.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have questions over what's going on with Jalen Hurts. And it's got to get better. As I said to Zander yesterday, Brian, it was, if you're talking about this stage devolving the offense, that is not good.
Yeah,
that is not good.
We're gonna have to talk.
I'm saying, look, I understand. Excuse me, got a cold. So my voice might come and go a little bit, but I get why people are saying it. But at this point, if you want to scale back this offense, that is not a good sign. You want to evolve it, and you want to keep getting better and better, and keep expanding it and expanding, especially with the new offensive coordinator. And if you want to scale it back, boy, that's a bad sign. You might as well start thinking. No, I'm not saying it's time. I'm not in that camp, number one. So I'm not saying it's time to move on from the quarterback or it's time to go in a different direction. But if you're one of those who believes that, then you might as well start doing your early research, because if you're scaling back at this point, you almost have to move on in 12, 16 months, whatever it would be.
They're going to be pretty hamstrung to be able to do that with the contract, but we'll see what ends up happening. And we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts coming up after the break. Looking forward to that segment. Hopefully I don't have John bashing his head against the wall for a second straight day, or he's going to be in the concussion protocol.
That's just about the running game. And even that, I mean, that doesn't mean you can't run the ball. You need to run the ball specifically. I'm talking efficiently, which the Eagles obviously did and more against the Giants. It means you can't build your offense that way week to week in the NFL. That's what that means.
I get it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Brian Garner checks in. Brian, appreciate it. Brian says, if you can pay for NFL Plus, please do. Brian, I'm a subscriber. He says, you can see that this is a Jalen Hurts offense. He's not comfortable with the middle of the field. And then he also followed up and said, also, it seems to me that he's only comfortable throwing against cover 1 and cover 3 for the deep ball or the mesh concept. Johnny Mac, what's your takeaway on Jalen Hurts and what Brian is saying here about this being his offense and his ability to throw against different coverages?
Yeah, they're building the offense around what Jalen Hurts is comfortable with. I've said that for a while. The common denominator here isn't Nick Sirianni. It isn't Kellen Moore. It isn't Shane Steichen. It isn't Brian Johnson. They all look the same because they all come to the same conclusion. This is what Jalen Hurts does well, and they try to build around that. That's why the offense looks similar, even though Kellen's calling the plays. And yeah, it's got to evolve. And nobody's figured out, since the adjustments have been made, Nobody has figured out the adjustment back to the point where people are happy. But again, I point to this. Look, the Eagles have never had a better run in their 91-year history. So they have won consistently with Jalen Hurts. And by the way, if you look up and you say 667 again, winning percentage, they're winning games. Does it look pretty? No. Is it as explosive as people want? No. Did I have to get better? Yes. Does he have to get better? Yes. But boy, that guy's a pain in the ass. 60 minutes, I always say. That's the best trait of Jalen Hurts. And 3rd and 3 versus 4th and 3. 3rd and 3 looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. 4th and 3, he looks like the best quarterback in the NFL. That's the head scratcher with Jalen Hurts. Because normally, if you look like the worst quarterback in the NFL, you're even going to look pretty shaky on the big play. He's got this ability to leave bad plays in the rearview mirror quicker than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And he could have an entire bad game. If a quarterback's having a bad game, he's having a bad game. Most quarterbacks. With Jalen, he could have a bad game for 58 minutes and beat you in the final two.
That's really true, man. He has bad series, not bad games. He always seems to find a way to make a play. And that's one of the things I do love about him. So we'll get to a commercial break. Johnny Mac, Brian, thank you for the super chat. Both Brians, James, Big Fish, and our team. Appreciate that. By the way, reminder, jersey giveaway at the end of the show today. So get your memberships in. Appreciate everybody that's a member. We'll be giving away one Saquon Barkley jersey for his explosion over his former team, the New York Giants, which he had on Sunday. What a great performance that was. Let's get to our commercial break. Appreciate everybody being here on the show. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown are the topics I have coming out of the break for Johnny Mac, and then we'll be joined by Les Bowen in hour number 2, get his takeaways from this ground and pound offense that the Eagles employed versus the New York Football Giants. Before I get to our break, let me tell you about our great friends at BetUS. You can look on your screen and you can see that promo code in big, bold print, YouTube 150. That gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and then you get 125% on your second and third deposits, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So go check out them today. And a big thanks to BetUS for sponsoring this 2-hour program of Birds 365. So big thanks to them. Go check them out at betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. Back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.